what's your take on the lawsuit? Right?
Oh, you're going to ask me that question.
I'll tell you, the first week of articles in the news nationwide were real estate agents have been ripping you off for 40 years. You're going to get a bunch of money now.
Yeah. Brian Leonhardt here with Leonhardt Team at Coldwell Banker Realty, a team of 10 agents sold over 150 properties last year. Today we have on actually my good friend. He was my college quarterback in Bemidji State. He played basketball there as well. He was the best man in my wedding. I was the best man in your wedding.
That's correct. 2
best man speeches, and he's been an agent on our team before, actually, for a little while. He's currently in medical device
manufacturing.
Got it. As a sales?
Business development sales manager for our North American team.
Got it. And then you have a degree in?
I have a biology and chemistry undergrad, a biomedical engineering graduate degree.
Oh, you do have a graduate degree.
Did.
You're the smartest person we've ever had on here.
It was
the most qualified.
Expensive.
Well, all right. Well, there we go. Smartest person we've had on. I don't know if that's true.
No.
You were an agent for a little while. What was it like? What was the thing that when you got into real estate and you did that, that was a couple years ago now, right?
It would have been probably 16, 17.
Yeah.
At the time, coming out of school, worked for a few years, kind of had the desire of, I need a side gig to get rid of, this $60,000 in student debt I accumulated to the graduate degree, right? If you remember the conversations. And you had started working with Josh and we're having some success, and you guys were working on kind of the idea of building the team at that time, and kind of had the invite. So I said, sure, I'll give it a try. I will say it is difficult to do part-time, but there's so much to wanting to be good and having a desire to be excellent at anything you do.
Yeah.
That you really do handicap yourself trying to just dabble in it.
Yes.
Because yes, it's easy to go and talk to people if you're kind of outgoing and that's really what you like to do, but that is just such a small part of adding value to a group of clients.
Exactly right.
Because your value as an agent was always when things go bad.
Yes.
There's X percentage of transactions that happen easily, right?
Yep.
Really, you're not that involved. You do the work, make sure your client was protected, but where real estate agents in what I learned quickly are of value is when things go terribly wrong.
Yes.
And the best agents handle those when the buyer or seller really don't know that issue happened.
Yes.
One of the ones that I know I worked with you on is I had a buyer coming in, the roof was damaged, needed to be repaired. The other agent told us it would be repaired. We consulted each other, made sure that was written in the contract. Long story short, the insurance company wasn't going to cover it. And so we weren't going to buy a house without a new roof. And because of that, the agent overlooked it. The deal was going to fall through. They had another house pending. Basically, they had to pay for a new roof.
Yeah.
And there's just a lot of those contract aspects of being an agent and troubleshooting and knowing how to execute, on the timeline, because you have deadlines.
Yeah.
That I just don't think you can really do and be of the most value.
Yes.
When you're stuck in between, do I really want to do it? Do I not?
Yeah. I think that the most important aspect to an agent is that knowledge and skill base that they have to be able to problem solve when things go wrong. Mm-hmm. Sometimes, you might not need an agent, right? It's like when things go really smooth and you make it to closing, right? And I think it's also a little bit of public perception of things don't usually go wrong. Well, there's so many moving pieces that can happen that you don't know about, mm-hmm. right? And also, a lot of times, those things get solved before the client even knows it. And that's our job to do, is to protect them from the stress of what's happening. There's one last year that I had where we had 15 offers on the house, and they were all way over list price, right? And we ended up having the appraisal. The appraisal came in significantly short, like way short, like $40,000 less than what the like 3 offers were, right? And it goes, okay, do we know what to do? And I'm like, okay, well, here's what I did is go, all right, I did the 3 things and found out what options we would have, right? And tested them all even before bringing it to the seller. I go, all right, I found out this happened. I'm on the phone. I'm finding 3 different ways that we can solve this problem or make it where the sellers don't lose on potentially $40,000, right? So I remember doing all of those things and going, all right, here's our 3 options. Here's what we can do. I have them all ready and prepared to happen. Then you bring it to the seller. Because if you just go and go, all right, appraisal comes in short, or here's a big problem, and you just send it to a seller and just go, hey, figure this out, or let them, like, where they have to deal with all that stress and all of that problem, and it's like, that's my job to do.
And it ruins their experience.
Yeah.
One, most people aren't going to have any idea. I know when I
Yes.
came in, started looking at these contracts, and there's really nothing off limits in what you can write into a contract.
Yep.
But there's also restrictions as to how you write it and how it protects your client versus like all of these options, and there's not many duplicate issues.
Yeah.
Right, everything is kind of new, so
Yes.
you're learning concepts instead of like specifics.
Yeah, that's true.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That can be applied across everything, and I don't know. It'll come. Like I'm sure if you did it part time for 40 years, at the end of it, you're going to get the experience that someone's been doing it for 5 or 10
True.
has.
Yeah.
Or there's certain people obviously that want to master their craft.
Yeah.
They'll get it earlier, but. It's just it's a complete tidal wave of information and activity that it's difficult to feel comfortable and feel that you're really providing an honest value versus
Just opening a door and writing a contract.
correct.
Yes.
Correct.
Where that's not worth it. If it feels like that, if your client feels like that, you're not doing your job well.
No, and I will say too, one of the other things I remember in shadowing you and Josh is on the buyer side, right? Buying a home is it's not always a fun thing. Like there's a lot of stress that comes in. Like, am I making a good decision? Am I
Yes.
whatever? That there's a lot of kind of the psychology component of, you tell me what you want, and then you get into the house that has everything that you want, and you're kind of afraid to pull the trigger. That's where sometimes having a good agent who
Somebody you
listens
trust.
and
Yeah.
that you trust, that can say, hey, no, remember this checklist we made a month ago? This is it. Like, this, you will be happy here. And sometimes people need that reminder, because especially in a market that we've had the last few years where, some people are looking at 20, 30, 40, 50 houses and, losing them, getting disappointed.
Yeah.
I don't want to pay this, interest rates are moving. Like, sometimes you got to kind of have that reminder of, this is it.
Yeah.
This is what you want.
Yeah. No, I think that I remember having a conversation last year with a client. We had lost out on a few offers, and he was just like, defeated, and was like, man, we're just not finding the right one. I can't get my offer accepted. Like he was ready to give up.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, if this is still what you want, right? And I don't think it didn't come from the perspective of going, hey, I put in all this work, I need you to buy a house.
Sure.
This was just like, I still think that right now is a great time to do it. I still think your situation makes sense to do it. I know it's really hard to do, and this isn't easy, and it's not fun right now, but give us enough time, we'll find you the right home, and you'll get one. It'll be better than the situation you have right now. And he bought a place in New Rapids, and I guarantee that house is worth, even now, $15,000 more probably, maybe even $25,000 more.
Have you ever had somebody be upset when you've had those conversations 6 months, a year down the road?
Yeah, of like the people that do give up and then like regret it.
Well, either that give up and regret it, or that, you maybe were like, hey, listen, this is what you want. They were a little hesitant. They go through and buy it.
I have 2 stories of people who didn't buy the house, right? One was, I'm doing this for 7 years, and if you realize what the market was 7 years ago, you're like, man, I really wish I would have bought back then.
Mm-hmm.
But I met people back then, and a lot of times people back then were going, and that's when multiple offers just started to happen, right? It was after the crash, and everybody would say to you, I'm waiting for the crash to happen again, right? And so they would all wait, and they've all been renting since that time period. And I guarantee, I mean, every person that would have bought 7 years ago that had the chance to refinance in, 2020, 2021, have a low interest rate, they have, anybody that bought back then has like 50% equity in their house now, right? And it was amazing the people that, now doing this long enough to seeing repeat buyers is to go, the people that bought back then were able to build equity in their houses, and then were maybe lucky enough to purchase in the early part of the pandemic using the equity from their house to be able to build and buy their kind of dream home, something they can be in really long term, going from that starter home to that second purchase, and then also getting it at a super low rate. Like, how jealous are we of those people being able to do that?
Extremely.
Yeah, but what happens too is the fact of like, we didn't know that was going to happen.
Yeah.
I didn't know that interest rates are going to be that low. I didn't know they were going to jump this high.
Yeah.
I didn't know we weren't really going to have a crash in the last 7 years. I didn't know that. And it's this thing of like, you never really know what's going to happen. You have to look at the situation you have currently and go, will the situation I can get, is that better? And can I stay in that house for long enough, right? I think that everybody always, sometimes the hesitancy to go, now isn't the right time, or I'm waiting for it to get better. I'm like, well, what if it gets worse?
Yeah.
What if prices go up? What if interest rates are as low as they'll ever be? We don't know any of those things. We can guess and we can forecast and we can do that, but realize as an agent, that's what I do like all day long. The amount of articles that I read and people that I talk to of going, hey, knowing as much as we possibly can about the future forecast of the market, that's our job to do. I think it's sometimes from the public perspective is going, well, I saw this Fox News article, or I saw this CNN article, and this is going to happen in this. And it's like, well, they're not agents, they're not economists, they don't really know. They're just kind of guessing so you can click on it. And it's like, that isn't great information.
Yeah.
Realize that my job is to find out the person who actually has the good information, right? That I can trust, because it really matters to me that it's correct or not. Because I don't want to lie to my clients.
Yeah.
I don't want them to have the wrong information. I need to have the best information I can possibly have, and do it through 4 or 5 different sources and go, hey, okay, where's the middle of this?
Yeah.
And so that's what I do, because I love learning. I love the economics of it and understanding it really well. So I think it's that thing of like, some people will go, well, oh, my neighbor said this would happen, or my uncle, was in real estate and this is what's probably going to happen. And a lot of times that's like, it's so far from the truth,
Yeah.
or it's like, well, I know economics well enough, to go, that's not really possible to even happen. This would have to happen for that to happen, or this would have to happen for that to happen. And it's like, you take all the information that you're getting, right, as a normal, consumer, and just go, okay, putting the best thing together. It's like, well, you've read 2 articles and listened to your neighbor, it's
Yeah.
like, it's hard to go to that. Like, I've been doing this for 7 years. I talk to the best professionals in the industry, or the best economists, or the best person I can find on interest rates, to know in and out as much as I possibly can, or help or use their information of going, okay, well, this person was right when the pandemic happened. And there's actually, when it comes to lending, there's a person called, it's MBS Highway is what it's called. And the guy there, I remember being on a conference call when interest rates, and nobody remembers this probably, when the pandemic hit right away, interest rates went up to 10% for like 2 days. And I remember there was just panic, just pandemonium, and with all the lenders, right? And I remember being on this call, and everybody thought they were going to keep skyrocketing, going to be 20%, and it was going to be chaos. And the one guy who runs MBS Highway was like, that's not going to happen, here's why. And it was ridiculously complicated why, but he was the only one that was right. And he's like, interest rates are going to plummet, and it's going to take a little bit, but they will. And he was right. So when you find somebody that I test through it to go, this is what they said back then, and they were right or they were wrong, or also, believe me, I don't trust a lot of companies or people that say like the high end, right? They're like,
Yeah.
oh, if they're wrong, they go, oh, the market's going to increase by 15%. And it's like, well, I usually try to find the one that has the most pessimistic outlook in a way, right? To go, all right, well, whoever said it's going to go up by 15% and they were wrong by 7%, they're probably getting paid to have the market go up.
Sure.
So I go, who's the person that is actually going to give me the trusted information? and actually a great resource for that is Redfin. Redfin's one of the most pessimistic outlooks a lot of times, right?
Yeah.
So I always like to look at that of like, who's the person that takes this the most pessimistic, right? And does an actual economy scale of it. And that's the one I look at and challenge the other ones from.
So you brought up articles and all the information that's out there. Now that we've had, a week or two to consume a little bit, what's your take on the lawsuit? Right?
Oh, you're gonna ask me that
I am
question.
change in the
NAR.
how the commission structure of the
Yeah.
real estate world is
Okay.
going to operate. I know
Yeah.
we've talked a couple times.
Yeah.
And I think we probably see eye to eye on a little bit of it, but
Yeah.
I want you to tell me now that you've had some time to digest it since we
For sure.
first talked about it.
Yes, this is a topic that I've run through my head 1,000 times and talked with the smartest people that I know on what is going to happen, how is this going to impact. But I think it comes down to this is like three things. Is one is the public perception is really important. Is to go, what are my clients going to think about this? What is going to be important to them? And then two, legally, what is going to change, right? And then three, how do we adapt to make it right for our clients? So I think looking at it from that perspective, in a way, I don't care what other brokerages do about this. I don't care what NAR comes out with. I honestly only care what my clients want. If this can turn out to be a more beneficial situation for our clients, then I'm all for it, 100%. And I don't know if the public perception is necessarily correct of what that looks like or how that's going to happen. But then also, nobody really knows how that's going to get structured. But I know this is to go, all right, on it. As soon as this happened, I remember calling 3 past clients. You were one, we talked about this. And I was like, immediately as it came out, I was like, what do you think? How are you perceiving this? What if we did this? What if we looked at it from this perspective and go, this is how we can make this work for everybody.
Because I'll tell you, the first week of articles in the news nationwide where real estate agents have been ripping you off for 40 years, you're going to get a bunch of money now.
Yeah.
And then, a week goes past, the articles from agents or brokers or other legal authorities are, well, that's not necessarily the case. It's just that the way that commissions in the past have been paid out they believe that there's more room for negotiation in there than maybe what has been perceived.
Yeah.
And I think one of the things that we talked about now that is up in the air again, but that I had an initial thought of is, in the past, the commissions were paid out of the seller's listing fee.
Mm-hmm.
Splitting that up now, I think buyers don't realize that there's a potential that it's going to be harder for them or more expensive for them. I don't know if that's true or not. That's kind of my perception in that if you want to work with a valued real estate agent who knows what they're doing, there's going to emerge from this different market segments, right? There's going to be your $100 flat fee, your more percentage based. Everyone's going to kind of take their different crack at how to best service it.
Yeah. So I think when it comes down to is like, the seller has always had a choice to choose an agent or go for sale by owner, right?
Mm-hmm.
There's 4% listing brokerages, there's flat fee brokerages, there's 6%, there's 7%. I think some might even charge 8%, right? So the seller has always had that choice. But then it's really kind of up to the listing agent to decide what the buyer's agent gets paid, right?
Mm-hmm.
And to a seller, they don't necessarily care all that much. They just want to know how much is it going to cost them. So they'll always ask you is, what's your commission? Well, an important piece of that is, what are we paying out, right? And I think that's an important piece. And I have this is I have a high-end listing right now, right? And I'm paying out on that to a buyer's agent more than the Minnesota average, right? Which is typically 2.7. And on that I go, hey, we need to make sure an agent and a buyer want to buy this house. If they get more of the percentage of cut than I do on this, that will incentivize this, right, to happen. Because I need a good agent on the other side. As a listing agent, you're not typically the one with the buyer, right? So it's important for us or me to pay part of my commission essentially to incentivize to do so, to get in front of those buyer's agent. My job as a listing agent is to put it in front of as many people as possible. And the most important people to put it in front of is agents with the buyer that will buy your house, right? It's not always for me to go, I'm going to find the buyer, right? I need to market because they'll call me. They don't have a relationship with me yet, right? I want to get it in front of the agents that already have relationships with the buyers that would potentially want to buy this house. And that buyer broker payout is important. Now, with the lawsuit, this kind of came out, is realize that's in different states and each state does it very differently. Minnesota is known to be a fairly fortunate ones for buyers, right? So in our listing contract, it does always say what the buyer payout is, right? Especially on the listing side of things. And I think that's important. I always bring that up is to go, hey, this is how the commission is split. It doesn't really, it matters that, what the total percentage that we charge, but it also matters what I pay out. Because if you pay a listing agent 6% and they go out and pay 1% to the buyer broker, a lot of times the seller won't even know that that's happening. And they don't realize that's detrimental to them. They don't realize that their listing agent is getting paid 5% of that. Like that's kind of absurd, Now that doesn't really ever happen, but theoretically that can happen.
Is it any different than maybe today, how if you work with any investors in certain foreclosed properties or fix and flip type contracts where, the seller agent may list it for 3 and isn't paying out a buyer's fee, where now investors are negotiating with agents to say, hey, typically the houses I'm going after, they aren't standard or what most people are experienced with in a traditional home sale where it's listed for 6%, buyer agent pays out 2.7, 2.4. Some of the investors you work with, you have negotiated fees for finding them properties that aren't included in listing fees.
Yeah, so I haven't actually done that before, right? Obviously, there's some, like if you find a foreclosed property, maybe you're asking like auction.com or Hubzu, a lot of times those don't have buyer broker payouts. They actually have the buyer, they have it put into going, you have to pay 3% of the purchase price essentially, and that gets broken out. And a lot of times the buyer ends up paying for the listing agent and to the buyer's agent, and it's a 5% like tech fee is what they kind of call it. So that's already kind of in a way negotiated in, but realize that reduces the buyer pool a lot, even for those, but it's usually pretty simple for them because it's a foreclosure and they just want to get it off their books. So they can do that, and a buyer has to understand, like, oh, I have to pay 5% more than the purchase price on this because I'm paying for both sides on this to happen. So those online companies and those foreclosures do that. Now, I have seen a couple of times in the past where there has been a 0 buyer broker payout, and those houses do not get sold. Like I remember seeing one, it was like, I think it was last year, and it was like, hey, we're not paying out a buyer broker, that's negotiated in essentially. And that property was on the market for 2 months and then canceled and relisted with a buyer broker. And I think that what makes the most sense on this is how I describe why a buyer broker is important to do is anytime I have a friend, that's maybe out of state or something like that wants to go for a sale by owner, the first recommendation I have them to have is to go, make sure you list that you're going to pay a buyer broker and pay out to an agent, because they're the ones with the buyer. They've been working with that client probably for 6 months, right? Doing all the work it takes, which is a lot of time and effort actually, and trust. And if you make it simple for them to go, oh, I don't have to worry about not getting paid, or I don't have to ask my client to do this, because the process is already so difficult. And to add that layer of complexity in, when it's the difficulty with working with for sale by owners is one, they're hard to schedule appointments with. It's hard to get a hold of them. It's hard to where they, maybe they go, hey, your buyer has to pay for this. Well, the buyer's like, well, I usually want to pay my agent. Like, you put in so much work on this, and the seller won't like cover that in a way. Well, it's like, well, what are we going to do? You know, I'll just go find something that is on the market.
Yeah. Well, for the agent too, it's it's an uncomfortable conversation
Totally
because typically when you're starting that relationship, it's anything I'm going to find you is going to pay out.
Yeah.
So we don't have
You
to
don't have
have
to
that
worry about it at
uncomfortable
all.
money conversation.
Yeah. We don't have to
between us.
find a different way to do this.
Exactly. And then all of a sudden you find a house that you fall in love with, and as an agent, you're obviously, if you find it, if you're of value to your client, you're gonna do it. But there's then that uncomfortable tension of
how do we structure this so you do get paid?
Yeah,
right?
I mean, it's like,
or I do, you know, like you want, you know, or I have to ask the seller, and a lot of times for seller owners, like, I'm not paying you anything. It's like, all right, well, I'm gonna have to find a way, you know. My buyer will typically want a way to do it, you know, but then it's like, and then also on the same side of working with a for sale by owner is they usually don't know how to read the contracts. You have to teach them. They don't know what title company to go to. They don't know if they need disclosures or not. They may not know if they have an HOA, that they need CIC docs. You know, there's a lot of things that they don't know, so you end up really helping them on the other side.
Yeah.
So if you do go for a sale owner, pay out.
Yeah.
Because the other agent will help you. I'll guide you through
Yeah.
it. Do you know what I mean? It's like,
Yeah.
that's where I think that with the lawsuit, I think when it comes to anybody that's a buyer's agent, you know, it goes, well, it doesn't reduce our value in need. It just changes how we get paid. And if anything, I think it's almost a good thing. I think that if you have, like you maybe, for example, right? You used to be an agent, you know, you probably want some sort of representation still, you know, to know the differences or some market knowledge, you know, but realistically, you probably could have hired a buyer's agent at a 1%, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I think that what's tough on the buyer's agent side is like, I'm beholden to whatever the listing agent has negotiated to pay out to a buyer broker, right?
Yeah.
Where it goes, I'm in a very complicated transaction with a very, you know, complicated buyer. I've spent a ton of time with them, and then the buyer broker payout is 1%. It's like, well, you know, I'm adding way more value than that, and it's like, well, I could ask my buyer to pay for this, and it's like, oh, this is the only one I have to ask them to pay more for, essentially, because they probably see all the value and have done all the work, right? And I've been working with them maybe for 2 years or 3 years, and all of a sudden we get to a property they absolutely love, and the seller is deciding, or the listing agent is deciding that whoever this agent is, they only get this, and it's like, that's tough. So I think that, if anything, like the good thing on this is to go, man, buyers should interview buyer's agent, because they're not all created equally.
It's like with any market. If Redfin has existed for a while, they're the ones that do flat fee listing type. It's like that. The options have always been there. If anything, I do believe, and just knowing you, that there are really good agents that will likely not see a difference. If anything, it may allow them to separate further than from the rest, because you build a reputation, your quality of work, the references come flowing in. There's never not going to be a need for that high quality premium service agent.
Yes.
And if anything, this may just open up more options for, you know, I have $100, help me out.
Yeah.
Somebody's going to jump on it.
Yeah.
And probably always have. It's just going to maybe be more well known that you can do that.
Yeah. Yeah, and you can choose. But I want my buyer's agent to be a really cheap buyer's agent. It's like, yeah. But no, kind of with most things, I mean, you do get what you pay for.
Always.
It's kind of how it works. I mean, and it's just, I think if anything, this is going to really get you to choose to go, well, I don't want much help, or I don't see the value. It's like, okay, well, perfect. You know, like you can find a 1% agent or a flat fee buyer broker, right? And then you'll kind of separate to know, which I think what's happened kind of before is a lot of people just work with the first agent that shows them the first home.
Yeah.
And a lot of times I get calls all the time of somebody that's like, man, I've been working with this person, I don't want to, and they don't realize they're in a contract with them. Like, I wrote an offer, and there's usually we have to have a buyer rep contract when you write an offer. And I'm like, I'm in this contract with this person, you know, because it was the first person I met.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, hopefully now it gives buyers the ability to choose or to research and to go, I want somebody that will actually help me do this and stick with this person.
Or the knowledge to know that just because you did sign that contract, you're not tied to them. I mean, if anything, this will hopefully stimulate more thought and questions of, you know, thank you for helping me write this offer.
Yeah.
I don't think this is going to work out.
Yeah.
let's cancel.
Yeah.
I truly think too, like, people feel stuck. They don't
do.
know that they can just request to have it canceled because they're
Well,
not happy.
technically they can't. In it, which is how the buyer rep works right now, is once you write that contract, and depending on how long that contract is, the buyer's agent doesn't have to legally let you out of that contract. So
For
until
any
the
house or just
until
for
the
that
time,
house?
it doesn't, unless you have the buyer's agent write in specifically for that house. Let's say that I'm a terrible agent, yeah, and you write a contract, I'm a buyer rep for 1 year, you're stuck with me for 1 year. I'm entitled to the commission for a year. So a lot of times when you go, hey, I want to release my agent, sure, you can.
The agent should be, otherwise it's.
Should, you would think,
But
right?
they're not legally obligated.
No, they can hold you
Interesting.
into that contract and you have to wait until it's out and done before they can. But usually, a lot of times what they'll do is go, okay, I'll give back a referral fee to the
Sure.
other agent,
Sure,
right?
sure, sure.
And cut the commission with them since they source the lead and stuff. So that can happen. But I think it's always, especially what we do on this team, is we cancel with anybody for free, right? If you don't think we're doing a good job, you don't want to work with us, we don't hold them in a contract.
Yeah.
We don't. You send us an email, and I think that's the thing of like, agents, we've always worked for free until the problem is solved. We work for free until you get what you want. That's the only way we ever get paid.
Mm-hmm.
That's all it is. Nobody pays us a salary. Nobody pays for our health insurance. Nobody gives us retirement benefits. Nothing. I will work with a client for 4 years. They will find a house right on that house, and during the inspection they say, hey, no, we no longer want to buy a house. Contract is canceled. That's fine.
Yeah.
And they move on their way. And I've spent 4 years working with somebody in countless hours, and I get no money for that.
Yeah.
Which is okay. That's why we try to do a good enough job with as many amount of people to where we don't have to feel that pressure of going, I need them to buy something.
Sure.
We let them out and go, we'll find another one.
Yeah.
Right? We'll fix whatever mistake we had here, or if they just change their mind and go, or this is too hard, or we don't think right now is time, or we have a change in our life right now.
Yeah.
You're good. It's okay.
Yeah.
It's just fine. I'll work with somebody else will come by. It's hopefully that you come back to me when we're done. But that's the thing, is we work for free until we come up with a solution. Lance, thank you for coming on, sharing your experience as a real estate agent, sharing your knowledge and tips with us and of what it is like, and also being a sounding board of a essentially past client, with the new NAR agreement and kind of the shakeup that we have in this industry. Your perspective is appreciated for sure. So
Yeah,
thank
no
you.
problem. Thanks for having me.